Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Death of Art. We're in Queens, New York at Cypress Hills Taxidermy Studio, owned and operated by Youngaitis. This is part of our never-ending quest to find art in new and unusual places. So let's go in and see what we can learn.
So your thing is called the death of art?
The Death of Art.
So I guess I'm the art of death.
Right. We have the death angle totally covered.
Right.
But do we have the art angle? That's the question we're trying to answer. And I mean, there's a lot of artistry in this. There's a lot of similarities to art.
You hang it on a wall. When I was a kid, I worked with my father. It was just like a job. And later in life, people should have known because all taxidermy places are called studio. Taxidermy studio. So studio alludes to art. It's half mechanical and half art. The mechanical part's taken apart. The art part is putting it back to look like what it did. Because any dead animal can be taken apart. That's, there's no art. It's just the mechanics of skinning it and preserving it. But building it back, that's the art part. Well, I apprenticed under my father. That's how I learned. Man, back in the day, my father was getting stuff like lions, tigers, all kinds of exotic stuff was hunted then. For me, it was like a naturalist paradise,
When did taxidermy, the Western style taxidermy, start?
I know it's turn of the century, and then Carl Lakely filled up the museum, so I would guess 20s, 30s, it really started blowing up with African safaris. I mean, it went back to 1800s, but it's still evolving. I mean, the early taxidermy, like these heads, it was a skull with wood, with excelsior, which is like a shredded wood wrapped with clay, and they had to build the whole thing. Now it's a prefab styrofoam with muscle tone, vein tone, everything's perfect. So to do what they had back then would take a lot longer and a lot more manual labor to get it built, whereas now I can do a head like a couple of hours.
This is not just mounting. This is, I'm seeing this fox is beautifully composed.
Right.
It's balanced. The negative space has been all worked out beautifully. This branch or whatever it's walking on, did you make this or did you find it and adapt it?
The company makes it, it's artificial. Taxidermy Supply, they make everything. Fake rock, fake trees, fake. That's where I get my eyes from. I get most of my taxidermy material out of them. The book offers a ton of poses, and
right.
I work with the client to pick the pose that they're gonna like. There's a lot of reasons why they pick a pose. It ain't just like random, just do it. There's no just do it. They have an idea in their head what they want. Even deer heads, like upright straight, you can have a left turn, you have a right turn, depends where you're gonna put on the wall. See like that big one there with the piece of cardboard on him? That's called a sneak, like he's sneaking through the woods. That's the way the guy saw it, and that's what he wanted. It's the memory of the hunt.
Right.
So they want to pose the animal pretty much as they saw it. There's also a wall space variant. You can't have an animal with a turn that looks like if it was in this corner, you wouldn't have a right turn looking into another corner. So you have to think where you put it in your house, and then you have to work around that also.
How would I bring in a deer? Let's say I shot a deer.
Okay.
What do I do next?
First, you got to gut it in the woods because bacteria starts in the belly. So anything you're going to eat gets gutted. Guts come out, or keep the liver, you keep the heart because you can eat that. Then it goes to the butcher. They take all the meat out, but they leave the skin and the head attached. They skin it usually right up to the skull. And I get the skin with the skull with the antlers. And then I take measurements of the face. There's a couple of measurements, the neck and the face, there's a couple of measurements you take because all deer are not the same size. And the mannequin, which is called a form, comes in all different sizes. After I skin is salted, then it goes to the tannery. They do the process and makes it nice and flexible. And then I order the form, and then I build it back. With glass eyes, there's clay modeling in the face and nose around the eyes.
I'm just looking at some of these beautiful little creations like that monkey up there. This is just beautifully organized and done. But what you were saying is if I brought that monkey to you,
right,
you would actually open up a catalog and we'd start picking and choosing how the pose, the background,
right,
and so forth. And that's how this is done.
It's all what the client wants as an end product. I can do any position on any animal pretty much. There's such a variety of poses out of this book that I can pretty much come up with anything. I used to do cats and dogs. I don't do them anymore.
Why not?
Two reasons. Number one, they die of disease, which I don't like to handle a diseased animal. And number two, when the animal dies, there's a big grief thing. the love is there. I can't do it in a week. I can't wave my magic wand and have it done in a week. So months later, when they get it, they don't want it back. They got another puppy or a kitten, they don't want it. But I do parts. I do a lot of paws for keychain fob, like the Lucky Rabbit's foot. I've done tails off a cat, tails off of dogs. I've done the skull, done the flat skin. So I do parts, but I don't do the complete animal. Birds I do. Pet birds, I'll do them all day long. And even the birds I get stuck with, all those birds in the window, that's all unclaimed birds.
In popular culture, I remember the first time it occurred to me that a human can be stuffed, or was presented to me, was in that first Planet of the Apes movie. He finds himself in a museum, there's various animals, and then he comes to humans.
Rocket partner was mounted, yeah.
Have you ever been asked to mount a human?
Besides all the gag calls, mother-in-laws and wives, I've gotten a couple of people who are generally wanted a relative mounted, yeah.
And the reasons for not doing so are basically the laws or your personal views?
Number one is the law. Number two, it's a dead person. And plus, there's no hair or fur on there. It'd be a lot more work to get the face and everything. It's bare skin. Bare skin is a lot harder to work with than fur because fur hides imperfection. Like to do a face of a person, it would really be a lot of clay modeling, and then I'd have to get the skin tan. There's a tannery, ain't gonna want to touch that. So. But I've had people generally like, one lady, she calls her, she's saying her sister. I'm like, what? I says, no, I'll pay anything, please. She's like begging me. I'm like, lady, number one, the hospital ain't gonna give you the body. Number two, it's illegal. Number three, I'm not doing it, so. And there was a guy who wanted his grandmother stuffed. He was talking about half of her body on a table. He wanted the wrinkles in there. He was very detailed about what he wanted, so. My father used to get 80 deer heads, and that was his cutoff. I get 30. So hunting has declined. Younger generation wants to play a video game. They don't want to go out in the woods and hunt. Women are getting into hunting now, which is kind of cool because that's, creating more business. But years ago, women never did. There was a few, but now I'm seeing more women in it.
Are you training anybody right now?
No.
Would you train somebody if somebody was
I don't have the time. I get calls all the time. I want to learn taxidermy. I'm like, get a book. My father was lucky because I was a kid and I was really into it, and I went down and helped him out, so it was easy. But for me to take somebody on who doesn't know anything about it, it's a lot to learn. Plus, 10 guys could pick up a wrench. Doesn't mean every guy is a good mechanic. So some people could have the want to do it, but they may not be that good. I'd see some taxidermy is terrible. I'm like, how'd you get away with that?
Please like, please subscribe, and please ring the bell.